Welcome, everyone, to the Hispanic Heritage Foundation's Pride Charla as we celebrate, but also learn from and form a stronger connection with our cherished Latinx LGBTQ+ community. Last year, my family and I attended 3 different Pride parades in DC, New York, and San Francisco in support of the LGBTQ+ community. I remember talking with Roberto Callejas from my team about how we wanted to use our Charla platform to celebrate Pride, in addition to simply changing the logo for a month. And let's make it clear, Pride isn't just a month, but every single minute of every single day. I look back fondly on last year's Pride Charla, which we did in Washington, D.C. It was an emotional, entertaining, informative, inspirational, and galvanizing event, as the self-selected speakers did 5-minute presentations on their experiences, ideas, and perspectives. I expect we're going to get more of the same in today's virtual Charla. The room last year was packed, but it's nothing compared to how many people we can reach today, not just on this Zoom platform, but on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on our website. This Charla is being taped, so you'll have the chance to share it post-Charla. During the Charla, we need your energy, so please use the chat feature. I use it nonstop to check in, to express yourselves, to ask questions, and to share information. These Charlas are interactive because we want to hear and learn from our community. I've always said that our community leads me, it's not the other way around. I want to take a moment, though, to just applaud our millennials and Gen Z LGBTQ+ community for changing the landscape in our community. A recent survey found that Latino millennials and Gen Z identify as LGBTQ+ at 22%, compared to 14% of African Americans, 13% of whites, and 9% of Asian Americans, which means you're less likely to say you're heterosexual as a millennial, as a Latino millennial or Gen Z member of our community. I know the LGBTQ+ community is still facing bias, bigotry, and hate, especially when you're both Latino and LGBTQ+. But I was heartened by this generations and these generations that will continue the important work of opening our hearts and opening our community and our minds. Please know that we will be hosting another Pride Charla to close out Pride Month with AARP, but as a treat, we get to hear from our friend Nii-Quartelai, who yesterday, who's doing a second Charla this week, and he crushed it during our How Can Latinos Be Better Allies to the Black Community on Tuesday. I also want to thank DC Latinx Pride and Steph for working on the Charla and making sure that we realize the importance of accessibility during this Charla. With that, let me turn it over to our English and Spanish language interpreters who will guide us to ensure language justice is all set during this Pride Charla. Thank you for joining us. Let me turn it over to you. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Steph, for always enlightening us. And now please welcome our host today, a very good friend and a partner to our organization, and someone that I personally greatly admire for his heart, his energy, his resiliency, and his vision. Please welcome Mark Madrid with the Latino Business Action Network, the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative. Take it away, Mark.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, welcome. Happy Pride. Thank you, Tony Tijerino. You are a dear friend, fellow warrior, and hero. Can we give the HHF some chat love? And familia, today's charla just became more important given our State of the Union. You know, I had many different ideas on how I wanted to kick this off, this conversation. Of course, this event is taking place in the backdrop of a global pandemic, the death of George Floyd, protests against systemic racism and social injustice. Let's continue to keep George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, and too many others in our hearts and honor them through our actions. As a reminder, this LOFT Charla is a platform to connect our community from all over the world. Therefore, we strive to create a safe and open environment for our speakers and guests, and we ask everyone to be respectful of everyone else's time and differing opinions. Please submit any questions that you have on the Q&A window. Please engage with us. And to kick off the charla, I will begin with my truth. In promoting this virtual event last week, I shared the event on my social media platforms. And on the top of the event details, I wrote, "It took me decades to own my own truth and to realize that I wasn't alone. Today, I'm a proud Christian, gay, boot scooting, bow tie wearing, marathon running, servant-hearted, business-minded Latino. And interestingly enough, on LinkedIn of all places, I got a comment. Most of all, overwhelming support, but I got this comment. This person stated, quote, "You cannot be Christian and gay, and that's not my opinion. It's a fact. They traded God's truth for a lie, and they worshiped and served the creation instead of the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. That's why God abandoned them to degrading lust. Their females traded natural sexual relations for unnatural sexual relations. Also, in the same way, the males traded natural sexual relations with females and burned with lust for each other. Males performed shameful actions with males, and they were paid back with the penalty they deserved for their mistake in their own bodies. Since they didn't think it was worthwhile to acknowledge God, God abandoned them to a defective mind to do inappropriate things." End quote. Familia, this wasn't 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. This was last week, Saturday, June 6, 2020. So there were a lot of thoughts that popped into my head after I read that disgusting comment. The first one being, my shameful action? What about you? That's the real shameful action. Then there were thoughts, should I delete this contact? Should I respond? Should I delete the comment, put him on a blast, and such and so forth? But one thing that stuck, that pained me, was that those words reminded me of what I used to tell myself. I should be ashamed of myself because of who I am. I cannot be blank because I'm blank. I cannot be Christian because I'm gay. I cannot be prom queen because I'm trans. I can't raise a family because I'm gay. I've always been, as you know, an eternal optimist. And while I'm always turning those cannots into challenges that can be overcome, once you're repeatedly told something, it's hard not to internalize shame, guilt, and not belonging. I've had a long personal journey struggling with those emotions. And fortunately, I now love and embrace myself. And I'm surrounded by those who love me and embrace me. Bigotry will not dictate how I feel about myself. But getting to now, that process hasn't been easy, not in the least. And it's only been possible with the empathy, support, and conversations like this. You may be at different points of your journey. Some of you might be beginning the journey. Some of you further ahead. Some of you on a completely different path. As much progress society has made, hate is still very present. But hopefully all of us joining here together and sharing our collective truth will serve as a strong rebuttal to anyone in our lives who say we cannot because of who we are. And if you're curious, as far as that comment on my LinkedIn post, it's still there. The bottom line, I am Christian, I am gay, I love the Lord who has saved me time and time again. My relationship with my God has never been stronger, and I am more energized than ever for the redemption that I have through Jesus Christ and his work of redemption on my behalf on the cross. Through the difficulty of owning my own identity, God did not ever abandon me. In fact, my faith in God led me to my ultimate freedom. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you, God, for making me with pride. The bottom line, you can be blank and be gay because you are made with pride. Thank you. For those of you who are part of the LGBTQ community, I love you. You're not alone. You deserve to be treated with integrity and respect. For our allies who are joining us, thank you for your support and for listening. Conversations like this literally are lifesavers, and I'm so immensely proud to be here with you and be a small part in sharing your own stories. And with that said, let's get going with our charla, Without further ado, I introduce our first of several brilliant speakers. The first is Ricky Rosé. He goes by they and he, and he's going to present on the importance of safe and equitable inclusion. Ricky, great to have you.
Hello, can you see me? Okay, perfect. Can everybody hear me? Awesome. Okay, perfect. Okay. Wow, Zoom is wild. This is wild times, y'all. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am Ricky Rosé. As many of you know me, I am currently based out of Washington, D.C., and I am currently DC's Best Drag King 2019, and I was crowned the first mixed DC Latinx Pride in 2018. My pronouns are, again, they or he in performance space. For the sake of this conversation, you may refer to me as they, them. So yes, hello everyone. First off, I'd like to express my gratitude for being invited to participate in this charla, and I hope for many more like this to come, particularly in the DC queer and Latinx community, because I think these conversations are very important and necessary and really wonderful. So I'd love for more of these to happen. As was stated, yes, I'm Ricky Rosé. Sorry, I'm repeating myself a little bit. I'm a little nervous. But yes, because I only have 5 minutes, I'll go ahead and skipping my typical spiel of diving into a lot of definitions and history and everything. But essentially, I would really like to take the opportunity to speak with you all on the importance of safe and equitable inclusion, particularly of AFAB, which stands for Assigned Female at Birth, and trans drag performers in the drag community. And let's see, let me look at my notes. I do want to disclaim, of course, that I am not an expert, nor is what I will be speaking on even close to exhaustive, as we can and always should be working to be more inclusive and equitable. So for this short amount of time that I do have, I will just specifically be speaking to my personal experience and shared anecdotes from community members that I have also spoken to and worked with on this topic. Now, if we were all in a room together, I would have asked you all to raise your hands if you love drag, but of course, since we're in this new age of this new normal, I guess, if you can just sound off in the chat real quick, if you love drag. I just want to see how many of us love drag. Awesome, so many people who love drag, amazing. Now, if we were in this room, I would ask you to keep your hand raised, but in this case, please sound off if you have ever heard of or seen a drag king perform. Not a drag queen, but a drag king. Oh, awesome, we have. Okay, cool. Usually when I ask this question, a lot of hands go down, and that's unfortunate because if you look at the history of drag and everything, drag kings have been around just as long, if not longer, than drag queens. So we've been there since the very beginning of the movement. And it's unfortunate that there's a lot of lack of visibility for not just drag kings, but an overarching of AFAB, again, assigned female at birth, and trans drag performers and non-binary performers in the drag community. So there are a lot of great ways to include us in the community. And I guess, sorry, I'm a little nervous. Communicating a lot of what I speak on as it translates into the drag community really starts with society. I'm sure so many of you are well aware of the wild wage gap that exists in our country and society, particularly in the US. So I just want to drop a couple of stats. According to the National Partnership for Women and Families, as of March 2020, that's this year, white women, or I suppose for this context, I'm going to say people who are perceived as women, so particularly AFAB folks. White women are typically paid just 79 cents for every dollar paid to white men, or folks who are perceived as men. When you dive deeper, it goes deeper than just gender, but even race. So for this context, because this is a primarily Latinx Charla, I will only share the Latinx stats. So as it pertains to folks who are perceived women in the Latinx community, Latinas are typically paid just 54 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men. And that, while I don't have any stats or, studies or, exact data to represent the drag community, it's no surprise that that translates into the drag community as well. If you ask, any drag king, as I'm part of several Facebook groups and group chats and just support groups and such, if you ask, I'd say at least 3 out of 5 drag kings, we are regularly either not paid for to perform or not even represented. We're not even welcome in the room. And so I just wanted to, I guess I'm probably running out of time, but I just wanted to take a few minutes to, share visibility. Like, hello, I am a drag king, and I work very hard, and I am thriving particularly in this online community that we've created now. And drag kings exist, AFAB drag performers exist, trans drag performers, kings and queens exist. And it is very, very important to include us in the conversation, in your shows, in spaces. It's very important to create safe and inclusive and equitable spaces for us, because as I shared some of those stats briefly, and there's of course a million other stats I could share, we are more vulnerable. We are more marginalized, and we're more vulnerable. And so in order to really seek equity, it's important to support those most marginalized and vulnerable in your community. And while there's a lot of great organizations out there that you can donate to, it's also important to remember that you should also be supporting directly and individually to the most vulnerable and marginalized in your life, because it is, especially now, it's even more difficult to, while there are more resources out there, it's even more difficult to get those resources, because everybody's kind of, trying to dig into that pot and trying to survive, and, not just survive, but thrive. And so I think I'm probably out of time, but I just wanted to share, yes, I am a drag king. I am a proud Latinx trans drag king, and we are here, we exist. There are beautiful AFAB and trans drag performers that you should be supporting in your life, and continue to provide direct and individual support because we need it. Thank you so much. I will stick around for a couple of minutes in the chat or whatever. I can drop my email if anybody would like to connect. But I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and I can drop that info if you would like. But if you'd like to talk more or anything like that, I would love to share some of the shows I'm working on, ways that you can support us directly and individually, financially, anything like that. I'd love to chat more. So please, let's connect. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Let's chat some love for drag kings. Please let us know how we can support you. If there's a virtual drag king show, we want to be a part of it. Thank you, Ricky. Very powerful. Our next speaker is Sheila Victorino, who will present on finding freedom. Ana, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sheila. I am the co-host of Tamarindo podcast. I'm also a mindset coach for Launch Latinx, and I'm a long supporter and lover of Hispanic Heritage Foundation and LOFT, and really happy to be with you this afternoon. So I'll be sharing a personal reflection. We all have moments in our lives that tear us open, that make us raw and push us, and sometimes even shove us into questioning who we are, how we're living, and what we're doing it for. Most often these moments come as unexpected change or suffering, when our lives are upended and we have no choice to be vulnerable and face our truth. La Rona in quarantine has been that for me and probably for many of you. I've learned from experience that the best thing I can do in these moments is accept and surrender to the pain, discomfort, and to vulnerability, because I've seen what can emerge on the other side. When Rona hit, me puse el cinturón and I said, let's go, I'm ready. I wrote, I read, I meditated, I moved my body. I did all the practices I know help me feel closer to God. I did all the growth. And when I say all the growth, I don't just mean spiritual. See, I decided that during this quarantine, I wasn't going to shave my armpits or my legs. I hadn't done this since puberty, when I was shamed into thinking that my hair was ugly, unnatural, and it didn't belong with my gender. I never had the freedom to just let my hair be. But now, for the first time in a long time, I had this time where the only people I was seeing was my roommates. I wanted to see if I could get past the shame, the ugly that was assigned to my body hair, because it didn't fit the preferred definition of what my gender was supposed to look like. I wanted to see if I could go beyond my conditioning. I wanted to see if I could love my hair. And I had moments where I felt like I loved it. I ran my hands through it freely, moments where I felt like I owned it. And then I had moments where I felt the shame and the ugliness rush back. It rushed back from messages in my ear, from everything I've been told my whole life. But it also rushed back when my roommates gasped, when they said ugly with their eyes, when they laughed, when they said it's just so weird because you're a beautiful woman and then you have all this hair. A woman, that word. I realized I've come to resent the word because all of the shame and the feelings of inadequacy that it's created in me my whole life. My whole life I had been forced to try and fit into a narrow, felt like I was forced to fit into a narrow definition of a woman, trying to be perceived as attractive within that definition. Nouns, categories, that's how we as humans understand and make sense of the world around us. We use them to explain, but we also use them to encage. In naming things, we define what something is, and we also often limit what they can be. We add judgment. We strip them of their beauty. Real beauty is found beyond definitions and categories and nouns, when we can remove the outlines and see what's behind our physical forms, when we start to let go of judgment, when we can start to see the limitless in each other. But we need words to explain. And sometimes we also find comfort in identity and categories. I found a home and comfort in the word queer. I love the word queer because it moves us towards less clearly defined categories, less assumptions, long established stereotypes, and less judgment that were assigned to me when I used to identify as a lesbian. I purposely didn't include my pronouns today because it's the exact thing I'm questioning, seeking, and exploring. Am I scared to use the term non-binary because of the image that I created in my head of what that means or what I'm supposed to look like? Am I gender fluid? Am I a woman who just has trauma around the narrow definition of woman that I felt forced to fit into? I've learned to love my body and my unique expression. Sometimes I like using it to express my femininity. Sometimes I like using it to express my masculinity without justification, definitions, or limits. I don't have a definitive answer about my pronouns I want to use or when. What I do know is that I feel peace in letting go of gender as a way to define me, to engage me. Many of you have had to take off your mask a little bit during quarantine. You've been forced to pause and reflect, maybe in a way you hadn't in a long time. I want to encourage you not to look away. Look at all of yourself, question everything, and try to do it without judgment. Just like we're finally questioning longstanding oppressive institutions like our police, question your definitions of yourself and others. Question your definitions of success. Question your definitions of happiness. You may be scared of what you find, but it may mean that your life may need to change in a way that creates fear or uncertainty. But our purpose here on earth is to live our most authentic, soul-aligned life and share unique gifts with the world. And that can only happen when you face and then let go of fear. Only then can we truly be ourselves and truly be free. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Ana, Sheila, thank you for sharing and celebrating your comfort and reminding us not to define ourselves by limits. That was absolutely powerful. Next, we are so excited to hear Claudia Alarco. Claudia goes by she, her, and hers, and she will present Claudia on Femmephobia and the devaluation of femininity. Claudia, thank you for being with us today.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the HHF team and to the leadership. Super, super grateful and excited to be part of the conversation today. Like Mark said, my name is Claudia Alarco. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. And I want to talk to you a little bit about, like Mark said, femmephobia and the devaluation of femininity in queer spaces and beyond. I think the discourse around femininity has been a conversation that has been really focused and centered around, right, cis heterosexual women in the community, right? And I think that, we haven't really given an adequate exploration around how this perception of femininity and sort of the fear and hatred and disdain for feminine things, for feminine people, for effeminate folks, right? And how it really intersects with those of us who identify in the LGBTQ spectrum. I think what's really interesting personally for me as a proud cis, queer, feminine presenting, obviously queer person and Latinx woman, it's been interesting how I've really wrestled with this perception that femininity is a performance to attract the male gaze, right? It's a performance that people put on to attract the attention of male gaze, and it's really focused on the male gaze, right? And I think what's so interesting that femmephobia is layered, right? It's nuanced. We've seen and we've heard conversations with our brothers in the gay community, right? That femininity is seen as undesirable, right? And for me, as a feminine presenting queer person, as a feminine presenting queer woman, it's seen as unworthy of visibility, right? Unworthy of inclusion in queer spaces. And so I think what's so interesting about it is I think we can't have the conversation around femmephobia without really having the conversation around straight passing privilege. Right. I'm not going to sit here and say that my struggles are, and the hardships that I face, because I recognize that, being straight passing, right, having this proximity to the perception of heterosexuality, unless I disclose to you that I'm queer, right, you would never tell, right? And I think, these interesting conversations around what queer looks like, sounds like, feels like, right? And so with that, recognition of that privilege, I think comes a huge responsibility. And I think, with that work, I think being cognizant of the fact that you do benefit from that proximity makes sure that, number one, you make sure that you combat against the erasure of your own identity, right? Being intentional about being in queer spaces and saying, I am queer multiple times, right? She, her, hers pronouns. That gives us an opportunity to normalize our queer existence, to make sure that we normalize LGBTQ life and existence and celebrate that, but make sure that we do it for those who don't have the privilege of being straight passing, right? Who don't have the privilege of benefiting from this proximity. So I think that's number one. And I think number two really gives us an opportunity for us to really deconstruct what being a non-threatening queer person means, right? I can't begin to tell you all the amount of times and spaces where I've been in non-friendly queer spaces, right? Where I've had the privilege to be that non-threatening queer person for someone who has probably never seen or talked to a queer person in their life, right? And so having the opportunity to, and I think having that weight on your shoulders to say, this is what a queer person, I think knowing that the actions, what you say, what you don't say, being able to inform them and holding that space for them, right? So we continue to normalize that, we continue to normalize that queer existence, that queer life, and we continue to fight for the liberation and the combating the erasure of our own existence and our queer existence, but also make sure that we're centering the folks who are most marginalized and most vulnerable in our community.
Claudia, that is a powerful statement, normalizing queer life. Thank you. Our next presenter is Nii-Quartelai. Quartey goes by he, him, and his, and presenting on your activism and the state of LGBTQ dignity. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I think the presenter is controlling the video, and so here we go. I think you can see me now. Does that work?
Yes,
work?
We see you. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the warm invitation. This is my second Charla this week. And so I'm on a streak. Tony, keep it coming. I want to say before I start, in memory of George Floyd. This has been a very rough week for our country and so many of our communities. And also on today, it is the 4th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. And so especially for those that are streaming in from Orlando on this anniversary, I've been thinking of you, and so many of my colleagues at ARP have been thinking about you as well. And so, it is Pride Month, and, no better time to reflect and to rethink and renew our commitment to social justice, to channel our activism in so many different ways. And so I really just wanted to spend a few moments giving you some food for thought with regard to LGBTQ older adults, which are sometimes forgotten in our community. The genesis of our work at AARP really riffs off of our mission to help folks to choose how they live as they age, and the two operative words being choose and live. We know that LGBTQ older adults don't all have the same choices as our heterosexual counterparts. And if you are a person of color, if you're Black like me, or if you're Afro-Latina or Latinx like any of you, that our choices are shaped by different realities. And so I wanted to spend just a few moments to give you a sense of, well, what are those differing realities, particularly as you get older. Pre-COVID, AARP had commissioned some research. We call it our Maintaining Dignity Study. And if you go to aarp.org/pride, you can check out that entire study. And if you're anything like me, you can geek out over all of the insights in that study. But part of what we found out is that there are real challenges facing LGBTQ older adults that sometimes fly under the radar of even our allies. So, for example, did you know that 76% of LGBTQ older adults worry about social isolation and having limited family support networks to rely on as they age? Did you know that 52% of LGBTQ older adults report facing prejudice and discrimination, particularly in a healthcare setting? 57% of the folks that we surveyed found that healthcare providers were insensitive in delivering care. And over half of them worried that nursing homes would withhold quality care. So at a time in this COVID era, I won't even dare say post-COVID, because we know that's not a reality in too many of our communities. We've seen the horrifying fatalities in nursing homes across the country. And so not only do we have to worry about, potentially dying, or our loved ones potentially dying in nursing homes, but we know that there are some precursors to that. There is a real, clear and present fear around the quality of care in nursing homes. What else do we know? We know that 42% of Black LGBTQ folks believe that healthcare professionals provide questionable care. And if you're Hispanic Latino, 27% of the folks that we surveyed fear that their race and ethnicity negatively impact the quality of care. 38% of Hispanic Latinos believe that healthcare professionals provide questionable care. 42% believe that their sexual orientation adversely affects their quality of care. And so as we rethink and reflect on our activism and all the creative ways in which we look to channel our talent and our organizing abilities, the privilege that we have, the platforms that we have, I'm hoping that this talk, this Charla, might be informative, might be instructive in terms of how you channel your activism. And hopefully, this talk will help you to think about what more you can do, what more we can do together to maintain the dignity of LGBTQ older adults in our communities. I'll leave you all with this. I don't want to take up too much time, but I had said on the Charla earlier this week that our communities are facing a rainbow hurricane. When you just think about it, have you ever seen a rainbow hurricane before? Chances are you haven't. That's sort of what this moment feels like. It is a confluence of a number of challenges that seem to be coming at us all at the same time. Challenges that include COVID-19, challenges that include the economic recession, challenges that include the imminent Supreme Court decision on whether or not it's legal to fire folks for being LGBTQ. Yes, in 2020, there's an imminent Supreme Court decision that's coming down on that. And the weakening of non-discrimination protections in the Affordable Care Act. We could go on, but it feels like a rainbow hurricane has been brewing and has made landfall. And it's on all of us to be able to protect our communities from harm, and dare I say, really take the most vulnerable in our communities to higher ground as we weather the storm. And, our pledge to you, AARP and Hispanic Federation and so many others, we're going to do what we can together to weather this storm. And so with that, I want to turn it back to our bow tie wearing, swagged out host for the afternoon. And I really just want to thank each and every one of you for being a beacon of light, especially on days that sometimes feel like the darkest of times.
Thank you for increasing our dimensions to include the 50 plus. I'll be headed there next year. Next presenting is Nathalie Huerta, who goes by she, her, and hers. Presenting on WTF is a queer gym. Welcome to the Charla.
All right. What's up, party people? This is Coach Nat. I am the owner of the Queer Gym. Welcome, homos and homies. In the chat box, drop if you're a homo or a homie, just for funsies. But I'm here to talk about what the fuck is a queer gym. I opened one up 10 years ago, so I'm here to tell you what's up. So my name is Nathalie. I'm originally from Southern California. I grew up hella Mexican with 9 siblings. Yeah, I had like my typical upbringing. But eventually I was able to, I was the first one in my family to graduate college. I went to the University of San Francisco and got my MBA from Mills College. And my second semester, I decided to open up a queer gym. So if you're wondering what's a queer gym, let me break it down for you. So in June of 2010, we decided to open the first LGBT queer gym in the nation. Our mission is to make happy, healthy homos by providing a gym space that's free of no homophobia, no transphobia, no fat phobia, no xenophobia, no mansplaining, and no gym creepers, because those are creepy. So, and this year, June 2020, marks our 10-year anniversary. So we're 10 years old now. We made that. So yeah, I'm going to hype myself up because damn, 10 years, that was wild. So what makes it a queer gym? My mom asked me when I opened the queer gym, she's like, so what do you guys do? Like gay push-ups? No, not really. But here's what we do. So as a queer gym, we're not only just like, a lot of gyms that you see out there are in a gay neighborhood, like the 24 Hours in the Castro, for example, in San Francisco. Or you hear of gyms that are gay owned, but that their business is not necessarily out, right? They're still catering, or not necessarily like specifically targeting the LGBT community. I like to say that we're the only gym that's hella out about being queer, and we ain't afraid to put it out there. So a couple of things that makes us different is the fact that we tailor our training to our transgender clients that are in that are preparing for gender confirmation surgeries. We also train all of our coaches on cultural sensitivity training and special nuances that that go into working with the LGBT community. We also have gender neutral bathrooms. We have no mirrors. I know that's a big thing. Everyone's like, I want to see my form. That's not really for the LGBT, most of us suffer from body dysmorphia. So the mirrors, not a good thing in the gym. We also start every class with an introduction so that we can build community. So we go through names, pronouns. That's a big part of what we do. And we also host fundraisers because we understand that our community is hella marginalized. So we're always putting together fundraisers to help even the most marginalized within our own community. And we're queer, so we love to party, and we're always throwing special social events, river trips, weekend trips, pretty much anything we can party it up. So the question I get often is, why did you start a queer gym? Essentially, it's from my own shitty gym experience. When I first was working at a gym, I was feminine presenting. And so I just had the same shitty gym experience most femme women have. And what I noticed is that as I started to get more comfortable, I started to present more masculine. And that's when shit got weird. I went from loving going to the gym to eventually just going there to work as a trainer and then going home and working out on my own because I didn't feel welcome in that gym. So I would get misgendered. The weight room was a pissing contest with the guys. The locker room, women would hide from me. And I'm like, I just gotta pee. Could I just pee and not have all the weird looks and vibes when I'm in here? And I started to Google, like, what is, I started Googling, like, lesbian personal trainer, gay gym, queer gym. And there was nothing. I remember researching that in Google and just getting back, like, a bunch of porn. Now, 10 years later, we Google the queer gym, and guess what? Actual queer gym pops up. So it's been 10 years in the making for this to happen. But now, as the only queer gym, I feel the sense of responsibility to not be the only queer gym. And so as we head into the next decade of us here, I'm just focused on getting the word out that we are here, especially right now. Our gym is typically located here in Oakland, California, but with COVID and everything going on right now, we essentially have become much more accessible and have clients in the East Coast and Canada, all across the nation. We all come together on Zoom, work out, party, and, create a bunch of happy, healthy homos. So that is me. That's Nathalie. I'm the Queer Gym. We would love to have you guys follow us up on Instagram at thequeergym.com. If you're trying to get in shape, we do have a homebody challenge that's coming up where you all can come through. And for those of you who speak Spanish, my staff is Spanish speaking as well. So come through.
Thank you. Thank you. Healthy homos. I love it. Please let us know. Sign us up, please, as soon as possible. Our next speaker is Nestor Rogel, goes by he and él, and Nestor will be presenting on being human. Nestor, welcome. I believe Nestor is, Nestor, you're on mute. If the HHF team can help me with that.
Right.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Nestor Rogel. I'm from South Central Los Angeles. Identify as he, him, his, sometimes they, them. Presenting on being human. I myself was born HIV positive. My father was a closeted bisexual man at the time who, would mess around outside of his marriage. He passed to my mom and, not telling her, she passed it to myself, and that's how I came into this world. Living with HIV my entire life, my biggest question was being human, as I didn't always know I was positive. I found out when I was 13, and it was what shattered my perception of what I was. I didn't identify as a human being anymore. I thought I was a monster, not to be loved, not to be cared for. To this day, I still tell people, I wasn't always a smiling ball of sunshine you see today. 10 years ago, you could have found me passed out on my own vomit in downtown LA. A lot of it was just out of the so little information that I had. Being growing up in a socially economic depressed neighborhood, HIV wasn't the most immediate threat to my life. Having to deal with, robberies and gang violence and police trauma. I had all these perceptions and negative ideas about life that were compounded by being told that I was dirty, that I was unloved, that I was to be uncared for. And this is before I became openly positive. All of that came from like the lack of knowledge I had and lack of knowledge that community had. So it took me a long time. And to this day, I become openly positive. I actually have a tattoo on my left arm here that reads that I have HIV. So I can talk to people and let them know about HIV, about getting tested, about PrEP, about being undetectable, about these advances that have changed the conversation significantly. To this day, I feel that when we talk about HIV, we often forget the very first thing, and that's human, that it can really affect anybody. And so I want to take this opportunity to invite everyone. On Saturday, June 27th is National HIV Testing Day. It's a good opportunity for everyone to know their status, to get information about PrEP and ways to protect yourself from getting HIV. The theme of this year is knowing, and it's important to know because, with PrEP, you can protect yourself from becoming HIV positive. And if you are positive, being undetectable can protect your partners from becoming positive as well. As HIV mostly affects the LGBT community, it's important to have these conversations and important to know your status and know the status of the people that you are with. And it's harder now to get tested, but there are home test kits you can go online and search for. There are also price reduction programs for pharmacies, so you can get them to free or no cost. If you have any questions, I'll put on some links for the CDC on the chat. But thank you for this opportunity to talk about my experience of living with HIV and my journey to becoming human.
Nestor, we are a better world because you're in it, man. Thank you very much for that powerful message. Our next speaker is Emma V. Balderas, going by she and ella, presenting on personal experience. Emma, we're so glad you're with us. Take it away.
Hi. Hi, yes, my name is Emma. I want to talk about my family. I grew up in Texas. My family is from Mexico. They moved to Texas. That's where I was born. And growing up, we have communication barriers. I was identified as a Latina, but I was struggling with that identification for many years. I grew up on a white predominant community. My family my family legacy was one thing that I struggled a lot because we didn't have any communication. I never learned anything about my family. I never socialized. And I always struggled myself to identify who I belong to, what I am, who I am. This struggle also led me to have even depression. But also when we add the queer identification that I have, also made me feel that I was a sinner, a wrong person. I have no one to help me to go through. Yes, I have some role models for language, and in many of those role models were white interpreters who also helped me to find a way to find my own identity. Am I bi? Am I lesbian? Who I am, what I am. And I started finding that I wasn't fit with many of those terms. Then I found out the term queer. I'm like, oh my God, this is who I am. It's more open mind. And I started having more communication, started learning and talking with other people. I found support in other people, and I started providing support to other people about this. And until this day, I'm still talking about this and I'm still learning. And when I start seeing other people, Latin people, who, yes, they also grew up on white predominant communities and have no way of communication with the family. I identify with them because of that. I was able to go to Gallego University. I was able to find an immense community of Latin people, and I become part of a specific group that is named Latinx communities, and I started learning about the different cultures, different backgrounds. They also are Latins, and I started learning about them. I started learning who I am as a Latinx person. Of course, we go to bars, we go to places, and I never been in a bar before because I was deaf and never had that option. But then I started learning and meeting people, and I started socializing with more people. Then I graduated from Gallego University. I started working with diversity and childhood and education. I am right now centering my work in helping those Latin children who are deaf to get access to communication, to get access to ASL and Spanish, and to be able to have access to learn who they are, where they're coming from, and that identity that they've been probably struggling, how can they find their own identity? And I always encourage the families, hearing families, to always keep communication with the kids. You know, we provide the resources to them and the support to those families to be able to support their deaf children, to understand that they are deaf, if they are Latins, if they are LGBTQ person. We want them to continue working on that. I help them. I identify myself with them. I said, hey, I am like you. I would like to help you. And I help them to continue their journey and their experience. That is the experience that I want to share with you today.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for your resilience and your ganas, your grit. Next on our agenda is Carlos Zavala, going by he, his, and him. Carlos, we look forward to your presentation on representation in the media. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you to everybody at the HHF who made this possible, and everyone really that participate. Today, I've heard stories from last year, and I mean, I was unable to attend last year, so I just heard the stories. But I mean, very, very proud and happy to be able to share a couple things today with you all. When I was discussing with Tony about this, one of the first things that popped up to my head was, where am I now with this? And it's pretty much in terms of LGBTQ and the Latin community, we are seeing progress in terms of acceptance. But the one thing that came to mind a few months ago was, which everybody probably saw, there was a thing on Twitter where someone had tweeted to Netflix saying, why does there have to be a gay character in almost every show? And they had tweeted back saying, because this is part of life, there's going to be someone gay that you'll meet. No matter where in life you go, you will meet someone gay. And of course, receiving a lot of positive feedback, but then that got me to thinking about representation of our community within the Latin community as a whole in the media. And we're talking about in telenovelas, in movies across, in Spain and through all of Latin America, but, as well as music. And to see how, although we have artists that support the movement, I feel sometimes there is little progress in terms of showing same-sex couples. And it's not until recently that we've had sort of this pioneer frontier movement caused by heterosexual male artists like Guayana and Bad Bunny, who started adding drag queens and started interpreting more of the queer community. And that's where, of course, you see the media going with like interesting take, like what is his sexuality, like asking more about that. One of the first instances I remember a lot was in 2010. I'll never forget it. I was still in my freshman year of high school, and Ricky Martin had just come out as gay. So I was just like, OMG, we're going to see a shift. This is it. And one of the things that for a long time with his like music career is that he never used male pronouns in the, you know, in the future of his songs, and even when he was in music videos, like the leads were always female, like, which I understand, but at the same time I don't, because I'm like, that's not what you want. That's not how you love. And, you know, you want to portray, right, that acceptance. It's like, we're not seeing that full acceptance by the Latin community in the media to the LGBTQ community. However, now you have, Netflix's biggest show, Casa de las Flores, and where, we're talking about, that was a huge push by Mexico to really address the community full frontally. On all counts, drag queens, trans, gay, all in one show, which really resounded, like, it was so brilliantly done and written, and it had such a wave of popularity, not only in the US, but we're talking about across the world. And it's to see shows like that interpret these roles, right? Where we don't see like a Latin gay character in a telenovela, for example, right? Like if you think about them, where are they really? They're just the best friend who knows about fashion and that. Until recently we had gay characters being written in to have a storyline as fathers, which is of course huge backlash by Televisa, but again, it's those pushes that we're still in the initial makes of making outside of the US. And I feel like that's what we as a community need to make sure that we are continuing to push for support by our favorite artists, our actors, because let's be honest, there needs to be more representation. There needs to be more acceptance and more showing that love is love. Right now, the best video I've seen is Residente, where to some people, yes, it's uncomfortable because that last video of his, it's all people kissing, but it's different couples kissing, right? To show that love is love. You see, Ricky Martin and his husband are on it. And it's just like, it's to show that we finally are the EK. Like, what's the problem here? Like, this is it. We're here for it. And it's to have these primarily like, to show, for me, it's really about having kids, and I'm from Bolivia. So it's like, people in Bolivia that don't consume as much as US content, but more like international things that are made, like to see themselves in this, to see that, okay, this is a regular storyline of, this is acceptance. This is, I don't always have to be full-fledged to like consume things coming out stories, but rather, oh my God, this man is fell in love with this other man. There's a hijinks. Like, it's these things that we need to start normalizing within the media, and that we need to start sort of, consuming more, making sure that this is the content we're looking for at the end of the day. And that, we want to make sure that it's on major platforms, because yes, there's a lot of content being produced by smaller studios and by indie films. 1,000%. There's a lot of that content that exists. There are gay rappers in the Latin community, 1,000%. But we're talking about people who have a major platform, right? It was not until 2017 when we saw for the first time ever a major movie studio put out a gay movie out, right? And that was Love Simon. That wasn't Brokeback Mountain, where it's like there was just a whole different storyline. But we're talking about a teenage storyline of coming out, talking about love, talking about acceptance, and that just happened. So I want to make sure that the Latin community also is able to keep on pushing and see that come to true fruition, so that we can fully start accepting everybody. And there are many things that we need to change within the media, but definitely I wanted to just raise this up to make sure that we are we are looking for those Latinx artists that are queer, and we're uplifting their voice and we're amplifying them, and we're making sure that, they get, because those views, those listens, all that stuff helps amplify their profile, getting them to collaborate with bigger artists. And again, it's like Thalia just sang with Pablo Vittar, famous drag queen from Brazil. It's these things, that it's little by little we're making a change, but yet I just want to make sure we all know there's so much work yet to still be done in terms of representation in the media. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. We must advance the cause through representation in the quote unquote mainstream media. Thank you for those powerful words. Next, we have Mónica Gallego, and she, Mónica goes by she and Ea. We can't wait to hear your presentation on language justice. Welcome to the Charla.
Hello. I'm trying to turn on my camera, but I'm not able to. Okay, there we go. Excellent. Hello, everyone. My name is Mónica Gallego. I'm so happy to be here. As a queer person, it means everything. Again, my pronouns are she and her. I first off have to say, especially because I'm going to talk about language justice, that I want to say thank you so much to the Latinx History Project and to Elle, to all the interpreters, to pretty much doing all my work for me. I kind of don't even have to go there because now we know the importance of making sure that everybody has access. So I think I'll start off with just talking about where my organization, it's called Creando Lazos, where it was born. It's born from my experience as being a child of an immigrant. My family is from Colombia, from Cali. And through those experiences as a child of an immigrant, I learned a lot about the harmful impact of inaccessibility and systemic barriers. And then also having deaf people in my family. I was very, very fortunate to have deaf folks in my family and deaf people in my life growing up. And because of that, I chose to become an interpreter. And so I've been an interpreter, a trilingual interpreter for 15 years. So you cannot be an interpreter unless you are a community organizer. There's no way. You can't separate them because inevitably people will be asking you to work interpreting and providing access, and then also to guide them into what is the most equitable kind of access. And so I want to say that the interpreting field mirrors a lot of what happens in our country. So in the interpreting field, the people that are primarily interpreters are white women. And because of that, even though they may be incredibly qualified and certified and have all the legal paperwork that they need in order to interpret, that does not mean that they are qualified to interpret for our Black and Indigenous people of color. So deaf, disabled. Now, I list these labels because each one of those communities has different needs. So deaf disabled, deaf blind, deaf, hard of hearing, and late deafened. So within our community, we have an even smaller group of communities and categories. And those communities need interpreters who are culturally and linguistically responsive and qualified to work with them. Unfortunately, agencies in our area, regardless of whether you live in a very diverse city, regardless of whether you live in a smaller rural area, agencies do not prioritize cultural and linguistic responsiveness in making a decision about what interpreter to send to a job. So that is what my work has been about. The one piece is being myself, working on unpacking my privilege as a light-skinned Latina, asking myself first if I'm the perfect person for that particular assignment, investigating what the topic is about, who are the people that need the access, and who is the person that you need to send. So I want to say thank you, especially to Emma, for sharing her story, because I think that really set up exactly what I'm getting at. Herself growing up in a place that was predominantly white, and her being a Latinx person and not having anyone reflected, right? And you would think that a Latinx person would have Latinx interpreters in their life that they could use to see, to access the world, but that is not the case. So when Emma had the opportunity to come to Gallaudet, which I also went to as well, she got an opportunity to see what it's like when you can identify with a community, when you feel that your culture and your language is valued. I will just say to close that I'm here the work that I've done is very close to my heart. It continues to be something that I fight for every day. I know that there's a lot of maybe shame involved in not knowing what is appropriate, what is equitable. And so I want to say, let me walk through that with you. Please email me at mo@creandolazos.org, or I'm also on Twitter and also on Instagram at mo_creandolazos. I take questions from everywhere. Please inbox me anywhere you like. I'm happy to walk you through the access process, what language justice really looks like for deaf, disabled people of color, Black and Indigenous, and the importance of holding culture and language as valuable and important as a skill set in the same way that you would having expertise in medical field or having expertise in legal field. These are things that without them, you are re-traumatizing a marginalized population that is already experiencing trauma on a regular basis, because their world is created really for people who can hear and speak. And so they are facing and navigating this life and trying to make the most that they can and accessing their world through trying to receive services from life-saving life or death situations. And if they are able to see an interpreter that is reflecting their identities in any way, and this includes, of course, queer interpreters and interpreters that experience that marginalized experience as well, that cultural and linguistic knowledge will make all the difference in providing them that empowering moment in their life. And so thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much. And please reach out to me. I'm putting the email into the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions and to be that bridge, support you in any way. Thank you.
Mónica, outstanding. Thank you for being a fighter, for opening our eyes today. Next in our charla, we welcome Alex Martinez, going by they and them, with a special poetry reading. Alex, you're up. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, everyone who was able to share their story and resources for all of us. Muchísimas gracias. And thank you for the team putting this together. I'm always excited to participate and to share with you all my work. I don't want to go on reading my poetry first acknowledging that today is June 12th, and 4 years ago, there was the Pulse shooting where 49 people lost their lives, including Black and brown folks. So I want to honor them, and I want us to remember that they were primarily Black and brown folks, and today is a very special day to remember them. I'm going to read 2 poems of my planner. The first one is called Uncut. Don't let the color of my skin distract us. If you notice the darker tone, you know your mind betrays you. I can see it in the corner of your eyes. We're not created equal, and you know it. But tell me, does the darker shade scare you? Does it amuse you, or does it feed your insecurities? You must wonder what hides beneath my clothes, or where the lines of my fetish eyes brown just leads to. Oh, mi pero, ven y encuéntrame. My foreskin is a place where you can get lost. It's a place where you can stay on a rainy day. Come up to the time for a talk that we will soon regret, because privilege will not let you hear my words. But still come up, I'll find you my lips. Okay. I see that people are having trouble listening to my internet or to my voice. Must be my internet. I'm gonna go ahead and try to read the second poem. I know that probably will not hear it. I will, of course, now. I will paste them on the chat. Try with no video. Okay, so I'll try with no video. I have traveled the world. Yes, I have traveled the continents. you need to hear it still.
Alex, thank you so much for your attempt, but we're still having some issues here, but we want to hear your powerful words. Would you mind just posting both poems on the chat box? I know for myself, I'm going to copy and paste them into a Word document, but we appreciate your energy. We see your light, and please post your poems here in the chat window. Muchas gracias. Next, we move on to Petrona de Pepechul, going as she and Ea, talking about mutual aid. We're so excited to hear you, Petrona. Welcome.
Iyayek tunal, nutukay yulu Petrona ta Pepechul, nahanesiwayul na Kuskatan. Hi everyone, hola todos. My name is Petrona ta Pepechul. I am a trans woman from Cuscatan, which is the land known internationally as El Salvador, and I'm going to talk to you about apoyo mutuo or mutual aid. We've been hearing this word a lot lately. We've been hearing about mutual aid a lot. People have been saying it a lot, and essentially I want to talk a little bit about and dispel some of the issues or whatever that folks might have around it. One thing that I want to say about mutual aid is that it is not charity. El apoyo mutuo no es caridad. Mutual aid is a basic principle of community, and it comes in fruition through many different ways, including sharing resources, having responses to disasters, sharing our skills, community defense, and also legal support. It is for a love of justice and for the survival of our community. I forgot to mention, but I'm coming today from a group called Trans Latinx DMV, Trans Latinx DMV. We are based in Washington, D.C. We're a trans woman, a Native American trans woman run organization that centers the needs of Black and Indigenous Latin American people living in the metropolitan DC area. And we recently did one thing for mutual aid. Recently we did the Undocutrans Fund, which supported 150 people all around the United States with $350 for stimulus support. It was during a time when a lot of folks in the United States were receiving $1,200 from the federal government, and undocumented people were left out of the equation. And so we wanted to create this fund to be able to support as many people as we could. We also were able to raise money to support 5 different organizations across the United States with $5,000 each to continue the work that they do. Amor y Solidaridad in New Orleans, Louisiana. Casa Ana Andrea from Houston, Texas. Community Estrella from Atlanta, Georgia. Casa Trans Lorena Borjas from Queens, New York. And No Justice, No Pride here in Washington, D.C. The fund was able to support folks. 40% of the people who submitted identified as disabled. 76% of the people that received funds identified as women. 64% identify as Central American. 60% identified as mixed race. 27% as Native American. 12% as Black. Folks from all different age ranges, ages 41 to 49 was 12%, 38% of the people were 25 to 30 years old. So we have a lot of different data around the work that we've been doing around the Undocutrans Fund, but we also have been collaborating with people in the community. Another part is collaboration. Collaboration is super important. We've been collaborating with a local organization called No Justice, No Pride, Sin Justicia, No Hay Orgullo. And this weekend, No Justice, No Pride is having a march and caravan here in Washington, D.C. for a Pride Month, where it's going to be centering the Black and trans community, demanding justice for Black trans folks here in Washington, D.C. and across the nation. Also, we've been collaborating with a group that's doing language justice for different events throughout Pride Month. They Them Collective is having this event series this weekend, and we have been raising money. Today, we received a $3,000 donation from one individual who donated so that language justice could happen at this event this coming weekend. So we please, if you are able to, support our fund. The link is bit.ly/capital L, capital J, capital PRIDE, Pride, 2020. So LJ Pride 2020. And you will help us be able to pay trans interpreters of color, queer interpreters of color to do the work that Monica was just talking about. You know, it's important to have, if we're having events that are for Black and Indigenous trans people, we have to have Black and Indigenous trans people interpreting. And if we're going to have events for the LGBT community, we have to have LGBT interpreters, et cetera, et cetera. So please, please, please follow us on social media at Trans Latinx DMV, or follow our website, www.translatinxdmv.org. Please support the fund. Simple ways to support is by sharing, by reposting, by donating. Donating is awesome. And before I get off of here, I do want to say that this week, 2 Black trans women were murdered here in the United States, and it's really, really important for us to say their names and to remember who they were and to talk about them, to talk about the issue that's going on across the world, not just in this country, across the world. So Dominique Remy Fells, Raya Milton. Also, 2 weeks ago, Tony McDade, a Black trans man, was murdered by police. And also a couple of weeks ago, Nina Pop was murdered. So these Black trans people are being murdered all around the country, all around the globe. If you look at the statistics regarding trans murders, it is Black trans people that are being murdered, mostly trans women. And so it's not just here in the United States, it's in Brazil, it's in Maryland. And so we have to, as Latin American people, we have to start thinking about the ways that anti-Blackness comes into our communities, the ways that we perpetuate violence against Black people, and how we are able to support. If we are not even able to support Afro-Latinx people that are Latino, Latina, Latinx, part of our community, and we're denying them space simply because they're Black, then we have a lot of anti-Blackness within us that we have to start breaking down and tearing that stuff down. Because anti-Blackness is a trans issue, anti-Blackness is an LGBT issue, and if you are part of the LGBT... Ooh, I was just muted by the host. If you are part of the LGBT community, then you have to also be down to support Black folks. And so thank you. That is all that I have to say. I hope that everyone has a great rest of the charla. And thank you to everyone that has been presenting, all the interpreters, and to the host. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias, Padiush.
Thank you. Thank you for being a ray of light. We appreciate your work. Next on our turn.
Sorry. Also, before I go, can you make me interpreter? One of the other interpreters was not able to continue. Can you make me one of the Spanish interpreters so that I can support Elle, who has been interpreting this entire time by themselves?
You are amazing. Thank you. The HHF team will get right on that. Muchas gracias. Next is Jose Ignacio Gaona, who will be presenting on Queer Familias COVID-19 Relief Fund. Oh my goodness, Jose Ignacio, we can't wait to hear about this particular relief fund. Welcome.
Hola a todos, espero que me escuchen bien. I am really excited to join everyone today to talk about something that's really important to our community, specifically during this time as we're all facing this pandemic together. But to start, my name is Jose Ignacio Gaona. I am a Mexican immigrant. I am a proud immigrant, Latino, gay, Catholic man. And I'm excited to, be able to get to a point where professionally and as an individual, I can be all of those things. And I think it was Mark that was mentioning it earlier, that we can be all of these intersections, right? There is no barrier to our identities as a part of the queer Latinx community. I am here representing the Latinx History Project, which is a DC-based nonprofit, 20 years old this year, and we're here to talk about a campaign of ours, which I've had the pleasure of leading for the Latinx History Project, which is our Queer Families COVID-19 Relief Fund. As many of you know, and as Shemi brought up just a second ago, a lot of us received support from the federal government during this pandemic in the form of checks. And we have access to a lot of community resources around us. But that's not the case for two marginalized communities. The first of those marginalized communities being the queer community in this country, and the second being the undocumented community in this country. And there are a lot of people and a lot of families that are on that intersection. Mixed status households were not receiving support in the form of those checks. And so the Latinx History Project stepped up when we knew that our community was in need. We were really proud to partner with the Trans Latinx DMV to help them with their campaign, and we started a new campaign recently to work with community partners across the United States and Puerto Rico to disseminate funding to these marginalized communities. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can look at a brief presentation together as I go into more detail about our campaign and how people can get involved and give back today. Oh, it looks like we don't have that available. So I'm going to go through the details of the presentation, which is fine. So the Latinx History Project 2 months ago came to the realization that our community was in need, as I was mentioning, and that our community was at a disadvantage because they were not receiving the support that other communities were receiving from the federal government. And so we started a GoFundMe, and I see that folks are actually linking the GoFundMe now, which is wonderful. Please share that link. We started this GoFundMe with the goal of raising $120,000 to reach people across the United States, queer families, undocumented families, and Puerto Rico. And to date, we have $21,000. So we're really proud of the fact that we've come this far. We've surpassed, a very significant percentage of that funding, and we're benefiting organizations across the United States. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the organizations and their geographic location, so that folks can get an understanding of the scope of our reach. So we're working with the Q Latinx out of Florida. We're working with El Hangar in Puerto Rico. We're working with Impacto LGBT in Virginia. We're working with Alma, Chicago. We're working with Gallego in Philadelphia. We're working with Trans Latina Coalition in Los Angeles, and a number of other organizations, including some organizations that are not even in the United States or on the island of Puerto Rico. We have folks that are beneficiaries of this fund in El Salvador, in a lot of different areas, and more that we hope to continue to reach as our funds grow. So I want to just encourage everybody to donate, to give back, because our community needs it. And I've been getting a lot of questions as a community leader about how folks can give back. And one of the primary ways that I think that we can give back today is making those donations to fundraisers that are putting money in people's hands. So thank you, and thank you for your time. And I look forward to continue to hear from some of our other presenters today.
Thank you, Jose Ignacio. Everybody, let's get that 21,000 to over 25,000. So please go to that GoFundMe campaign. Next on our agenda is Larry Villegas-Perez on a very important topic, developing resilience. He goes by he, his, and him. Larry, so proud to have you on, and I can't wait to hear your presentation. Thank you.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everybody. And I understand that we don't have screen sharing, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's okay. So to everybody who's here, this is my window office in Washington, D.C. Let me wink so everybody knows that it's just my background. Again, my name is Larry Villegas-Perez, but I go by Larry VP. I have been in D.C. for since I came here for college, so about like 20 years or whatever. So what I wanted to speak today was developing resilience, but developing resilience through another lens. Developing resilience through working with other people, through being involved in the community, through being an ally for others. So my background is in mental health and coaching and hypnotherapy. So I work with people to get them to enhance their skills, their strategies for communication and productivity in general, teams, individuals, companies, etc. Now, I just had 2 episodes of what is called COVID-19. I was getting better, and suddenly, for some reason, the virus got reactivated, and I became very ill again. Now, the good thing is that the second time around, I was a much better and more educated consumer. My doctors checked on me all the time. I had to call and give them my temperature, my pulse, my oxygen level, because they gave me a little thing to put on my finger. And many friends and loved ones, God bless my dear close friend, life partner, Fernando, who may be listening, who was always ready there to listen to my calls and to my complaints, or even listen to me crying sometimes. So thank you again. I also want to say thank you to Hispanic Heritage Foundation, because even Antonio Tijerino, who I have known for many times, became this also closer soul that I could actually talk to, and many, many other people. But today, I want to talk about resilience and how we can overcome all the barriers that we go through and how to bounce back, because that is exactly what resilience is all about. Yes, we're down, but we're going to bounce back and we're going to go and continue moving forward. So I want to tell you that there are three things at least that we can do to actually become more resilient through being an ally to other communities. For example, and this is very important, every day, let's check our own perceptions and ideas, our micro and macro aggressions and biases, and let's educate ourselves and others around us to eliminate comments or aggressions about other LGBTQ2I+ communities. Learn their history, their struggles. There is one book that I highly recommend, How to Be an Anti-Racist, being written by Ibram Kendi. I would highly recommend it, and you are going to love it. The second action that we can take, because this is all about taking hashtags to action, is to check in your friends. Check in on your friends. Right now, we have a pandemic, we have lack of resources, hunger. To tell you the truth, I'm just waiting for the zombies, but hopefully it's not going to happen yet. So check in on your friends, colleagues, people you know, who may be impacted right now for everything that is happening. Become a supporter of your neighbor, of the community around you, an agency that is close to you. Be a support by shopping for somebody, cooking for somebody, delivering food for somebody, sharing your bread and butter with somebody else. Shop at minority-owned businesses. And the third one that I'm going to share with you is realize and accept that heterosexism, racism, classism, and all those isms are embedded in all aspects of our lives. But every day we need to check, because it's very tiring. So just imagine what a Black or Latinx trans person feels if they cannot actually pass. We all somehow have been labeled in jokes and other matters as illegal immigrants, drug dealers, terrorists, and much more. And it is very tiring. Clean our language. We need to speak positively. We need to bring people up. We need to move our movement forward. And last but not least, do something for one person. Do something for one neighbor. and then you will see a miracle. And I will finish with two more things. One, vote. And two, count yourself. Participate in the census. Again, this is Larry VP, and I hope you have a great rest of the weekend and happy Pride Month.
Larry VP, we love your energy, man. Thank you for your courage and your comeback story. Continue pressing on. Next, we have Steph Niapari, goes by they and them. We'll be presenting on Ecuadorian LGBT community and the importance of looking at what our community at home is doing. Steph, welcome to the Charla.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Opari, they, them pronouns. Thank you so much for having us and this partnership. I'm really excited to close off, right? Before I start, I'm actually going to be speaking in Spanish for the rest of my portion. So if you do not know Spanish, since we do have interpreters, click the interpretation tab and change the channel into English, and you'll be able to follow along. I'm going to give everyone a few seconds to do so. Perfecto. Ya que veo que algunas personas están en el canal de inglés, voy a empezar en español. Entonces, yo soy Stephanie Opari, pronombre es ella en español, claro, y voy a hablarles un poco sobre la historia LGBTIQ del Ecuador. Usualmente en los Estados Unidos, especialmente en el contexto Latinx, vemos que hablamos sobre las personas mexicanas, cubanas, puertorriqueñas, claro, por el contexto también político que existe. Entonces, tenemos que acordarnos que tenemos hermanos que viven también y son también de otras áreas de Latinoamérica. Y saber nuestra historia es algo sumamente importante, ¿verdad? No podemos olvidarnos solo porque vivimos acá, que las personas de nuestros ancestros que siguen en nuestros países no existen, ¿verdad? Que tienen su propia lucha, su propia historia y debemos también aprenderlas. Igual que aprendemos aquí una historia sumamente blanca, LGBTQ de este país, también tenemos la responsabilidad de aprender nuestra historia. Entonces, para comenzar, en 1540, Pedro Ciecia de León escribe el primer relato en vivo de la exploración y conquista de los actuales territorios de Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Bolivia, llamado Crónica del Perú, en el que hace referencia en varias ocasiones al pecado nefando de la sodomía, practicados por algunos indígenas de la isla Puña y Puerto Viejo. En 1984 nace SOGA, Sociedad Gay, la primera organización gay del Ecuador. Se dividió en un sinnúmero de finales en diferentes provincias. La organización se dedicó a hacer frente principalmente a la crisis de VIH y SIDA llegada al Ecuador. 1994. Durante los 80s y 90s surgieron otras organizaciones como FEDEPAZ, Fundación Ecuatoriana de Ayuda y Prevención del SIDA, y FAMVIDA, Fundación de Amigos por la Vida, las cuales presentaron una descripción de las violencias a los derechos humanos de las personas homosexuales en el país ante la OEA. Esto es 1994, entonces si se fijan, hace poco, pues yo nací en el 92. Junio 1997, una redada política en los abanicos bar de la ciudad de Cuenca llevó a todos los asistentes de un reinado travesti, todas las personas que estuvieron ahí, les llevaron a la cárcel. Este hecho encendió por más la lucha de los derechos LGBT en el Ecuador. En 1997, a pesar del trabajo de las organizaciones gays y trans, seguían sufriendo a las manos de las fuerzas del orden. Como siempre, y seguimos viendo, especialmente durante este momento, que la policía no sirve y nunca ha estado de nuestro lado. Lo sucedido en los abanicos fue un denotante para organizarse y se creó Conchinelli, la primera organización de travestis y transgéneres a ese tiempo, claro. Recogen firmas en todo el país y así logran despenalizar la homosexualidad en el Código Penal. En 1998 se reconoce en la Constitución la discriminación por orientación sexual como ilegal. 10 años después, en el 2008, la Constitución consagra la equidad, igualdad y no discriminación, la ley sancionará toda forma de discriminación a las personas LGBTQ. También en el 2008, el Código Civil reconoce la unión civil entre las parejas del mismo sexo, lo cual después de 8 años, en 2016, derecho al cambio de género y nombre en documentos legales. En 1918, la Corte Constitucional del Ecuador reconoce a Satia como la hija de una familia homoparental luego de 6 años. En 1919, hace un año, el matrimonio igualitario llegó al Ecuador. Y en el futuro hay bastantes cosas que hacer, igual que aquí en este país. Y nosotros debemos estar pensando qué podemos hacer cuando regresamos a nuestros países, cuando vamos de estas vacaciones o visitar a familiares, ¿verdad? ¿Qué es pagar $70 más para otra maleta con recursos que se pueden llevar a estas organizaciones, especialmente teniendo el privilegio de poder migrar entre este país y el nuestro, ¿verdad? Saber nuestra historia nos ubica en un contexto de que este territorio, ¿verdad?, el que vivimos, y también es un territorio que navegamos entre varias barreras, ¿verdad?, y varios borders que muchas personas llamamos hogar. Nos da la autoestima y nos da la memoria que nadie nunca nos podrá dar. Para mí, ser ecuatoriana, ser una persona que vive acá en DC y navegando entre identidades y entre mundos y entre fronteras y sabiendo esta historia, me enorgullece más y me da más poder para seguir enfrentando a tantas cosas que vivimos. Entonces, gracias por tenernos acá.
Steph, thank you for that powerful history lesson. Familia, this concludes our charla. Happy Pride to everybody. Can you do us a favor today and share your reflections? The world needs to hear them. We want to be tagged, we want to hear it, and we want it to be shared. Thank you, Familia, for your super engagement. Let's give some love to our dynamic speakers. And of course, Hispanic Heritage Foundation, we look up to you. Please join us again at next week's Charla. We will be sending you the invitations, and as always, feel free to invite your friends and your familia. And so the HHF team will be also following up with the resources mentioned throughout the Charla. And last but not least, have a great weekend. God bless you all. Adios. Happy Pride.